notes about meditation practice. So the last couple of days I've been giving some various pointers or instructions on the practice of meditation. And of course, these are based on the Buddha's teachings, but also on my own experience of what at least has helped me the most in developing a consistent and enjoyable, practice of meditation as well as life in general. Now, if you've been to other meditation centers, every teacher kind of teaches differently. They tell you to watch the breath either here or somewhere else, or they rarely mention sort of being aware of the whole body and so on, but or they have so many other techniques. But as most of you know, I integrate like deep breathing, at least in the beginning of the, when you come to sit down, or even doing some exercises before, not doing it right now, but most of the other times we have, and deep breathing. That's because of my yoga background and the experience and how that helps one to meditate, the body-mind connection. And then an emphasis to the posture. A lot of meditation retreats you go, they hardly ever mention the posture. Or they might just say sit straight and that's it, but never mention it again after that, and so on. So, these kind of things I kept on repeating to people because they're, in my view, very important. And that's why a lot of people's meditation doesn't go very deep. It kind of just goes around in circles, even though they're meditating years and years and years. It may not have gotten deeper, and partly because of that, neglecting that sort of body-mind connection. But anyway, so just as so these various things, like, when you sit down, to adjust the posture, try to feel the head balanced on top, keeping the chin lifted up, establish that, feel that natural inward curve of the lower spine, and then, trying to feel, going down through the body, just feeling the different parts of the body so that the mind gets used to that. And then after that, kind of trying to feel the outline of the body, or just tuning into the breathing and doing 3-part breathing while you're even doing that. And I really recommend, especially for beginners who don't, cannot do that 3-part breathing so well yet, or still have shrunken lungs and can't really take deeper breaths or hold their breath in, to practice that. Because in my view, that will be more valuable than just sitting there and, where's that sensation? Where's that sensation? Beating your head against the wall to try to find something that's very subtle, or other types of pains and so on. But anyway, these are all just things that, I put out for people to experiment with, and to see what helps. There's no one exact meditation practice for everybody. There's guidelines, like the 4 foundations of mindfulness is a guideline. But within that, there's, people have to find ways that will help them to kind of follow those guidelines. So, or, using, thinking about the meditation. Some teachers say, don't ever label anything, don't ever note anything, don't note, sitting in, breathing, or hearing, they're dead against that. Okay, now that may be all right if you're already at a kind of a high level of meditation. But for beginners whose minds are constantly wandering, or they're constantly getting distracted, that is a skillful tool. So all these different aspects of the meditation practice are skillful tools in order to keep the mind, the main 2 things, not going to sleep, or just sort of drowsing out, spacing out, or just constantly kind of lost in your thoughts. Now, the thoughts are not the problem. Getting lost in the thoughts is the problem. So when you establish awareness, like, are able to finally kind of like feel that in the body and have the breathing there in the middle, thoughts will still come and go, but because you're connected to the breathing or the posture, you can't get totally lost in the thought. See, most people don't develop that anchor so that they get easily just carried away and lost in thoughts and distractions. But even if you just have 50% concentration, a lot of people say, oh, you have to have perfect concentration. Forget about perfect concentration. Give me 25%. Give me 50%. If just 50% of the time you were connected somehow to the present moment, you would reach a pretty good, decent, deep level of meditation. And so that this idea of you have to stop your thoughts and everything, it's, to me, it's not very helpful, at least in the beginning. They'll stop when they're ready. But so, you can, if you have a lot of thoughts, as I already mentioned, substitute it. Think about the body. What is this body? This body lives on breathing. And the heartbeat, or, what is it? It's just an earth element, fire element. It's made up of cells, atoms, molecules, electrons, which is just energy. So you develop this kind of train of thought as you're watching it, and that helps the mind, stay there. So it is some thinking, but it's thinking about the meditation and helping the mind to kind of go further. Or other random thoughts. Once you have that connection, you at least can feel, even 50% of the time, the breathing or the body. Either one is equally well. If you can't feel the breathing so much, just keep on just feeling the body. Another good technique is, after doing the breathing, or even before, as I've already mentioned, just to pick 5 parts of the body that have, strong sensation, like your head, your eyes, or the face, and just keep your attention there for, even just 10 seconds or 15 seconds. And then move to, like the shoulders, move to the chest, move to the hands touching together, move to the buttocks pressing the floor. Feel the feet, all these places, and just to feel some sensation there. And you can keep doing that even the whole meditation period, because you're still in the body. That's the point. The mind is still in the present moment. But if you include the breathing in between, that's even better, to do both. So anyway, because by going through feeling the body like that, then eventually that outline of the body will kind of be able to stay in your mind longer. And that's when you can notice anything coming and going. And it helps you to get out of your thoughts, because you have to give the mind something to notice. Just, watching the breath only in, out, it's kind of boring. But if you, give it some variety, there's some little interest there, but it's still in the present moment. It's still right there, right before your eyes, so to speak. So it's not like your mind is wandering. No, that's the misconception. But anyway, so but then at some point, of course, then all that, of course, is like preliminary stuff. But once you can, you maintain that, you have a good connection to the breathing and the body, then just try to hold that. And then just be alert for the various things zipping in and out through the senses. And that body awareness, it's similar to, how many of you have a full body mirror at home, or have seen one or something, right? Now, if you just stand there, or you have a big mirror on the wall, even like that bathroom back there. And just look in the middle and just relax your eyes. Basically, you can see the whole mirror right there. And anything that moved on the mirror, like if a spider was crawling in the right-hand corner or something, you could probably see it, or something down there. Not in full detail, but at least you know something is there. You know, without having to look. You don't need to look. It appears by itself, right? The mirror doesn't say, hey, come here, spider, crawl on me. No, it appears by itself. It reflects that. So our consciousness reflects whatever is coming through the senses. And you just stay open to that and see how quickly things are coming. But your job is not to cling to the object. To see it, oh, just visible vibration. Spider, ah, ah. No, see, that's sankhara, that's reaction. So you see something, hear something, just hearing, seeing. And the mind doesn't have anything to fear or worry because it doesn't even know what it is. So this is how we try to train our mind and practice. And to use these different aspects of like reflection, investigation of Dhamma and so on, to help the meditation practice. So does anybody have any last questions on that? Because a lot of times people don't explain all these things. And so people just sit down and just, their mind is just, what? Actually, I'll talk about that in the Dhamma talk. After the Dhamma talk, I'll bring it up then. Okay? Okay, so let's go ahead. This will be the last, full meditation period of this retreat. So, what I like to say, buckle up. Right? Hit those road bumps of pain or other mental moods and so on. And even sometimes you can make a little determination. Those Goenka retreats are famous for their adittan session, where they tell people, make a firm determination not to move during the whole meditation period, and just sort of grit your teeth and bear up that pain or whatever else it might be. Okay, so let's try to sit straight. Gently close your eyes. Try to feel your head balanced on top of the spinal column. Try to find that center of gravity of the spine over the hips by gently moving the whole head and spine backwards to come close to the tipping point. And just feel that straight and alert posture. Imagine that you're balancing a stack of books on top of your head. And keep the chin level with the floor. Just feel your face muscles, feel the sensations on your face. Feel the eyes and the socket. Just feel your nose. Feel the lips touching together. And try to feel your tongue inside the mouth where the tongue touches your teeth. You just remind yourself sitting. Hear the sound, just hearing. You feel your shoulders, relax the shoulders. Feel where any of the clothing touches the skin of the shoulders. Feel the weight of your arms hanging from the shoulder. Move the attention in inner to feel the chest, feel the clothing rubbing the skin of the chest. Take a couple of middle chest breathing, middle upper lobe breathing to feel that clothing rubbing on the skin. Present moment sensation. Hold the air in a few moments. Feel some subtle sensation from the oxygenating blood. Moving the attention further down to feel your stomach area. Clothing rubbing on the stomach. Maybe some remnant of breakfast digestion, stomach pain, stomach noise. And feel your buttocks pressing the seat. Just kind of just understand that as the earth vibration, vibration of feeling solid. See if you can notice each buttock, some sensation in each buttock. The pulse of blood, some pressure. Just remember sitting. So feel that inward curve of the lower spine. If you've lost that, kind of just gently reestablish that inward curve of the lumbar vertebrae. And feel your hands and fingers where they touch together, where they touch your leg. See if you can notice the outline of each finger and thumb. Mind can do that if you focus. Feel that aliveness in the hands and fingers. Of course, the idea of your hands is a perception in the mind creating the idea of hands because of those particular vibrations. Try to understand that. Even the idea of a whole body is just a perception created by the mind. And let the awareness kind of move down to feel your knees, how the knees are bent. And the lower legs tucked underneath. It's like, looking through a video camera. Then feeling your feet, starting with the heels. You feel the sensations in the heels of the feet. Heels are always pounding the ground from walking. There's always a lot of sensation in the heel. The arches of the feet. It's like you point a video camera at some object, just point the mind at those places. Be your own cameraman or woman. And feel your toes. See if you can feel each toe, starting with the big toe. Just remember sitting, sitting. And let the awareness kind of move back up and rest behind the eyes. Let's try to feel the outline of the whole body, all those different places we went over individually. Should be able to, they all make up the outline of the sitting body. It's like looking in a mirror. Then begin some 3-part breathing again. Feel the undulating movement of the abdomen, rib cage, and chest in the middle of that body outline. Holding the air in 2 or 3 or 4 seconds to feel the subtle oxygenation. And feel the relaxing contraction of the out breath. Follow that out breath down to the in. Feel the feet and buttocks pressing the floor. Sitting, sitting. And the next in breath. Try to do that at least 5 or 6 times. Just feeling that breathing within the larger body. This dynamic living organism. When you get tired of that 3-part breathing, and on the next out breath, just let go of it. Just let the breathing alone return to its own uncontrolled, shorter, irregular rhythm. And continue to feel it, to observe it, to know it. The residual expanding and contracting sensation. And if you still have lots of thoughts, you can try counting the breaths from 1 to 10 by yourself. Slow down the momentum of your thought. or if the thoughts are not so bad, just continue with just in, sitting, out, out, sitting, tuning into the 4 phases of each breath cycle, expanding in breath and the pause, contracting out breath and the pause. Breath by breath, moment by moment. Being alert for thoughts trying to sneak in and steal your mind away, or falling asleep. Still drowsy, do more 3-part breathing, holding the breath in the lungs longer. Be like a scientist sitting in the laboratory looking down through the microscope. Keep turning up the power of the mental microscope. If you have good concentration, try to notice, recognize the 5 aggregates. This is material vibration. This is pleasant, painful feeling. That's a perception. That's a reaction. Thought. That's ego consciousness. Help keep you awake. Gradually open up to the flow of impermanence, noticing more and more sensations arising and vanishing, sounds arising and vanishing, thoughts coming and going without holding them. Allow them to vanish by noticing something else. There's always something else coming through the senses. Just get the feeling of sitting in a balcony seat at the theater, watching the movie of your body and mind, the comedy of errors. Whenever the mind gets confused or spaces out, take a few deep, slow breaths. Stay grounded, centered in the alive body. In, sitting, out, out, sitting. So many sensations arising, vanishing, sounds coming and going, perceptions, thoughts coming and going, pleasure, pain coming and going, thoughts of I, me, or mine coming and going. This is all just a continuous flow and flux of change and impermanence through this body-mind system, rising and vanishing through the expanded space of present moment awareness. So you get a sense of that. The more things you can notice rising and vanishing in quick succession, less chance for your mind to get stuck on any particular one. Bring back the past or future. The awareness effortlessly floating like on the ocean waves. Moment to moment. Just allow that little trace, remnant of I, me, or mind, and just gradually fade away into the ocean of awareness. Don't be afraid. Sambe Sankara Anichati Yada Panyaya Pasati Atanibindati Dukhi Esamango Visuddhiya Nati Janam Apanyacha Hanyanati Ajayitu Yam hi janancha panyacha Siri nibbana santiki Dukkha patacani dukkha Bhayapataca nibbaya Sokapataca nisokha Ontu sambi pipanino All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. They arise only to briefly last, then vanish. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purity, to freedom. And there's no concentration without wisdom, no wisdom without concentration. One who is both concentrated and is wise is close to peace and freedom. And may the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. Thus spoke the Buddha. Finish if you like to join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times slowly. Take a deep breath. Sadhu. 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 Just one more time, place your hands at the edge of your knees. For an in-breath, stretch the head back, pull the hands on the knees to arch the spine. Lift the head up on an in-breath. The out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest. In-breath, lift the head up. Out-breath, relax. Okay, now mindfully stretch out your legs, and mindfully stand up and do a few minutes of some standing awareness. Relieve any buildup of pain or discomfort in your legs before we start the Dhamma talk. Bathroom, do that. Part breathing, blood, standing body, relieve those blood loosening. So on your own, you can do one or two of those stretches, breathing on your own, right? Sitting down. Sit back down. For those whose legs are always screaming in pain, you can sit in a chair at the back, peanut gallery. Okay, friends. So, last couple of days we've been focusing primarily on the meditation practice, trying to cultivate mindfulness, concentration, some wisdom, but from this last talk, I want to kind of give a larger picture of where all that fits in the predicament of a normal human being in the practice of the Eightfold Path by starting with what's called the simile of the raft. So, you want to take a little walk on a wild side? Been sitting a long time? Take a little walk on a wild side? Okay. So you have to use your imagination a bit. So just imagine, well, today's Labor Day, right? A lot of people going on picnics. So maybe somebody in the city decided, yeah, I'm going to go on a picnic today. Just by myself, go out in the countryside and take a walk in the woods, So he goes out, parks in some nice place, then starts to take a walk toward the forest. Then all of a sudden there's a big earthquake. The earth is shaking and is splitting open and his hair stands on end or hers. He runs, jumps over crevices, and finally the earthquake stops and the ground stops shaking and kind of, they're maneuvered around that one. So he keeps on walking. Then all of a sudden, a big flood, a tsunami comes from the earthquake. And again, he runs and runs to try to outrun the flood water. And eventually he makes some higher ground and escapes that. Then he keeps on walking further, goes into through the woods. And all of a sudden there's a big forest fire. The trees are burning up, and so he runs and runs to outrun the forest fire. Finally gets out the other side, and then he keeps on walking further. A tornado comes. He's uprooting all the trees and blowing stuff around, and he hunkers down to escape all the blowing debris. Finally, that goes off. So all these dangers, 4 dangers, were threatening his life. So he thought he was over that. So he starts walking. He sees that there's a village over there. I'm going to go in the village, and get a hamburger or Coca-Cola or something. But then as he's walking toward that, he goes through some boulders, and 5 bandits jump out and start chasing him with a sword, wanting to cut his head off. So he runs and runs and runs to outrun those 5 bandits. And then he goes into the village, hoping he's going to find some help, right? The policeman or somebody else. And he runs into the village to try to find some help, knocks on all the doors. Nobody home. Empty village. No help. Then he turns around and he sees a ghost. Ah! His hair stands on end. He sees a ghost. And he runs out of the village. And he runs down the bank, and there's a broad river. There's a nice, calm, flowing, wide river flowing by. And he looks over on the other side. Everything looks calm and peaceful. But he's kept looking around his shoulder here, see if there's any more dangers coming after him. So he wants to, if I can only get across that river. But then he realizes, oh my gosh, I can't swim. So he looks around. Then he spies 8 logs stuck in the bank of the river. So he has an idea. Wow, if I can pull those logs out, tie them together, I can get on a raft, and I can launch and go across the river where everything looks very peaceful. He looked on the other side, and there was palm trees blowing in the breeze. It looks like they have coconuts and papayas and stuff. It's very peaceful over there. I get over there. And so with great effort, he pulls the logs out of the mud. Then he looks around and he sees some vines in the tree. Oh, I can tie them together with the vines. So he goes and gets the vines, ties the logs together, pulls it down to the river, and then launches it and starts paddling. And as he's paddling with his hands, piranha fish are biting his fingers, or sharks. And so he, tries to get away from that danger. And so he gets away from the piranha fish or the sharks. And then there's a whirlpool, going around like this, and he has to avoid getting sucked down the whirlpool. So he, paddles again with his mindfulness, avoiding more sharks, and paddles, and finally avoids the whirlpool. But then right ahead, there's a sandbar. Oh my gosh, I'll get stuck on a sandbar. So he, uses his surveys, his mindfulness and concentration. And I'll avoid the sandbar, and he finds a way to, paddling and avoids getting stuck on the sandbar. And then he gets close to the other side. But now at the other side, there's a lot of submerged branches and tree trunks, from prior floods and things falling down. So it would block his ability for his raft to actually make it to the bank of the river. Submerged obstacles. So he looks and looks, and finally he sees a place where it looks like there's a ford, a place where he could get the raft in without getting stuck on it. So he aims for that, and finally the raft gets on the other bank. And he gets off that bank and feels the cool breeze, and he's kind of, and he sees the papaya and mango fruits, and so he goes to the tree and enjoys the fruits. Gets cooled down. He takes a little walk, and he sees a path. He goes up on a little hill. And up on the hill, he's got a 360-degree panorama. He looks around, so peaceful. He builds himself a little shack and lives happily ever after. Now, I'm sorry if I'm using the pronouns he, she, it, and them, whatever. You get the picture, right? Anybody. So they live happily ever after. So now this is an analogy for the Noble Eightfold Path in the different elements that we've been discussing, during our study. So, the average person is the average person. Anybody's wanting to have happiness and to be free from danger, minding their own business, right? But yet he goes out to enjoy, and all these dangers come. So those 4 things: earthquake, flood, fire, and tornado, What are those symbolic of? The four elements: earth, fire, water, and air. So earth element, earthquake, right? Get out of balance. And then the water element, too much water in the body, you can get bloated and other things, or not enough, you get dehydrated and die. So imbalance of the water element. The fire element, you get too hot or too cold, you could die. People are dying from heat exhaustion out in Arizona. Right? And then tornadoes. So it's not a fairy tale. I mean, in the last month alone, how many thousands of people died from all four of those things? 110 people died in Maui from a fire, and that was caused by wind. People are dying from earthquakes and drowning. So this is a reality, right? So those things, when those are imbalances in our own body, and then our body breaks, it has pains, it gets diseases, old age, and dies because these elements are constantly changing and we can't control them. So in order to get away from those dangers, people try to enjoy themselves. So they indulge in, their enjoyments. Want to do their bucket lists or just other type of enjoyments, to get away from the problems or fears or worries about getting old or sickness or death or other problems. When they take the alcohol, drugs, or other types of things that bring their own type of suffering. And then the five bandits jump out, wanting to chase that person. What are the five bandits? We've been talking about them. Come on, I just mentioned it in the last meditation. Five aggregates: form, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness. Because these are always trying to give us pain too. The physical body, right? Getting sick. Now COVID's coming back. People are worrying about COVID, just any other types of pains or sickness. And then the feeling, painful feelings, pain in the body, sitting, you can't even enjoy meditation because of the pains. Or the pleasurable feelings, you want them, but they don't come. Oh, I want to attain jhana, and it's not coming. Then perception, the sort of hallucinations in the mind, taking something for real that is just an illusion. Our different perceptions and ideas about things which are just ours and they're not shared by everybody. Like all of our likes and dislikes and things like that. And then our volitional formations, or all of our bad habits that we have, we get stuck in repeating them, or other, just nervous reactions and habits that also cause you a lot of trouble, like obsessive compulsive disorder. There's so many other infinite number of, sankharas there. And then the ego consciousness. And we're trying to, where's this ego? Who's in control? I'm trying to control this. I'm trying to control my life, my health, my this. But everything is, it's changing under your feet. Some people wind up committing suicide. Can't handle it. These things happen, right? Not to everybody, but they're there every day in the news. So it's not a joke. Not a fantasy. So anyway, person then they want to get away from all those kinds of pains. They run into the village looking for help. What's the village? Ice cream shop, movie theater, all the different things, arcade, you go into town to see the movies, the opera, whatever. Find some entertainment, something to get your mind off your problems. Or going to your friends and different things. So anyway, and then the ghost, after trying all these things to be happy, and he's constantly being harassed, he sees the ghost. What is that? No self. He realizes there's nobody ultimately in charge here. you know, you know. If this was our body, we should be able to say, body, don't get sick. Don't have pain. Right? I mean, if it's ours, you'd think. If we own it, then we should be able to tell it, do that. Do what you want. Can we? No. Or others. Want our children to do what we say, or our friends to do what we say, or government to do what I say. No one's listening to us. We're not in control. Even your own thoughts. I'm sure we can manage things to a certain extent, but I'm talking about ultimately the sense of I and self. People get frustrated because they can't get what they want. Anyway, so, and then the running down to the river. The river is a symbol of the river of life. From time a person is born, and they go through childhood, teenagerhood, and young adult, and get a job, and the whole thing up to old age and death, and all the trials and tribulations that occur. Even the happinesses, we don't, say that there's not any happiness too, but again, it's short-lived, and it depends on these things that are always changing. So, then he sees he can't swim. What does that mean? Come on. What does he can't swim mean? It means he doesn't know how to deal with it. Doesn't know the Dhamma. Doesn't know how to reach safety. But then he spies the 8 logs. I bet you know what the 8 logs are. The Eightfold Path. So he hears the Dhamma. He sees a book on somebody's coffee table, some friend he's visiting, the Masterful Teachings of the Buddha. What's that? And then it gives him faith. Wow, the Dhamma, I can actually change my own life. I don't have to wait for a savior to save me or whatever. I don't have to depend on all these things that just lead to bad results. So it gives him the faith and the strength to pull those logs out. And then tie them together. What's that vine that ties the logs together? It's right understanding. Understanding how it works. It ties the logs together and then starts paddling. Paddling is a metaphor for the effort we put into practicing the Eightfold Path. And what are the sharks or the piranha fish that are always trying to bite us? That's the lures and temptations of the sensual pleasures and so on that we lust, desires, and so on, and that we try to indulge in, but ultimately they can come back and bite us, cause us pain. Various types of addictions and breaking the precepts because we're trying to satisfy our desires by stealing, telling lies, sexual misconduct, intoxicating the mind, but then wind up having to suffer the consequences of that. And then the whirlpool. What's the whirlpool? It's our dark emotions. People get pulled into some dark emotions like depression or despair, fear. It can really, be like a dark cave for people and lead to suicide even. So, or drug addiction, or eventually kills them and so on. So anyway, okay, you avoid the whirlpool. Then the sandbar. What's the sandbar? The ego. I am. I'm better than others, or even I am inferior to others, whether it's an inflated ego or it's a deflated ego. It's clinging to the sense of self. People get stuck on themselves and, want to boost up their self to defeat others. And anyway, they get, vanity, pride, and so on. So to avoid getting stuck on a sandbar. And then finally, the submerged branches and trees just before you might reach the other side. Well, this is a little bit more difficult to understand, but basically it means our repressed emotions in our unconscious mind that are buried deep in there, but and until you've been able to release them and get them out through the practice of reaching the highest stages of meditation, then they're always waiting there to trip us up, So, and then the other side, of course, stands for liberation. So, and eating the fruits on the papayas and coconuts, that's the fruits and the benefits that you get through the practice of the Dhamma, and especially when you reach the higher stages of, liberation from greed, hatred, and delusion. So, is that a wild ride? Okay, so I just want to review the Eightfold Path a bit now, coming back to that. So I think you all know, how many know the Eightfold Path? How many can rattle off all 8 steps, really quickly? Oh, right speech, somebody says. You got to do it in order. So right understanding and right thought, those are probably the most important in the beginning. Because like so most of us Westerners, we didn't hear about the Dhamma until we were older and maybe, took a class in world religions, or nowadays, because if you're younger, everything's on the internet and all that. But like back in my day, there was no Dhamma available really. There was no temples in any towns really. No access to Dhamma. Very few books. But anyway, I took a course in world religion, and I heard about the Buddhism. We read about the different religions, and we were supposed to write a paper on the religion that interested us the most. So I chose Buddhism for some reason, just in some textbook, and just very cursory kind of, Siddhartha Gautama, yeah, he lived then, and he got enlightenment, and he discovered the Four Noble Truths, and through the practice of meditation, attained enlightenment, and Eightfold Path, and about karma, and so on. Wow, this is cool. I never heard this before. Where's all this been all my life? Like, wow. So I got excited, but then the class was over, and then went out to go to a temple. No temples. Went to the library. No books on Buddhism. There's no internet. So basically, I got an intellectual understanding. So the right understanding, that first level of right understanding, is intellectual understanding. And it comes through reading books or hearing lectures, and you get initially kind of enthused, and thinking you're going to get enlightenment in 6 months or something. But then you have to go on thinking about it. That's why the right thought is the second step of the Eightfold Path. Once you get a working understanding of the Dhamma, you have to go on thinking about it. Because, how many of you read a book or read some article, but then didn't think about it and you completely forgot about it in 1 or 2 days? Even if it was some article about your health and you should take these vitamins for a bad liver or whatever it is, because you get distracted and you go to the movies, go to your friend, and you forgot about it. So the same way in my case, I have a very personal experience with this. Okay, I got that sort of right understanding because I wrote a term paper. I even went to the library, and there was only 4 books in the whole public library of a mid-sized American city. Can you believe that? Only 4 books. Now there's 4,000 or more. Anyway, so I wrote this paper, and I got an A+ on the paper. The teacher wrote on, oh, she admired my understanding of the Dhamma. But then, as I said, I didn't practice, and I went back to drinking beer and smoking pot with my friends, and partying, getting into mischief, and so on, and planning my big trip to India, and I forgot all about it. And I started, doing unskillful things again. So that right understanding didn't do me much good right then. In fact, on my trip across Asia to India, following the hippie trail and staying stoned, just following the crowd, I did a foolish stunt thinking I could smuggle some hashish and take a kilo of hashish into the Himalayas and just go up to Manali and smoke my brains out and live happily ever after. I mean, that's a hippie fantasy, but I had it. But I wound up in prison instead. Got busted. Afghanistan prison, of all places. Afghanistan. Kandahar, if you've ever heard of Kandahar in the news. And I was lucky to get out with my life. So after that, I was saying, what the hell am I doing? I got to get off these drugs, because it caused me to do some foolish stunt, thinking I could just do that, and and so but what to do? So when I got to India, I heard about meditation course, chance to take a meditation, and something inside said, that's what I got. That may be my trip ticket. And so I went to that course, and it totally changed my life. Turned my head around totally 180 degrees. And I just wanted to become a monk after that and dive into meditation, because all the Dhamma was so interesting, all that newer Dhamma. And that's what happened. And it lasted until now. So anyway, I'm just saying that without thinking about the Dhamma, then you could get sidetracked like I was. Well, fortunately, I did come back to it. And that Tibetan meditation course was all about thinking about the Dhamma, most of it, not practicing meditation the way we've been doing it. It was mostly just taking in ideas and spending a whole hour just thinking about, right understanding, or thinking about karma and how it affects your life and so on. But it was very powerful, eye-opener. So anyway, so the right understanding and the right thought, that is what, because if your understanding is wrong, your thoughts will be wrong. If your thoughts are wrong, your speech will be wrong. If your speech is wrong, your actions will be wrong. And your livelihood will be wrong. I get caught up in cheating in business and drug dealing, that's an easy way to get money, whatever. Or cheating in legitimate businesses and so on. And then your effort will be wrong. And your mindfulness will be wrong. And your concentration will be wrong. So that's why the Buddha, the Eightfold Path, it's always preceded by right understanding. And the words right and wrong, when we use them in the Dhamma, in that way, like right understanding, I mean, whatever is right leads to more happiness, according to the Dhamma, and whatever is wrong leads to more suffering and pain. So that's so so they're not kind of morality things like right and wrong, people are caught up in what's right and what's wrong. But according to Dhamma, what is right leads to more happiness. What is wrong eventually leads to suffering. So then after you have the right understanding and right thought, so that's preparing your mind. Now what are you going to do? Now you actually have to do something. Right speech. Third step, right speech, right? So we clean up your speech. A lot of suffering comes to us from our wrong speech. And usually people think that that just means not telling lies. That's only one part of it. That's why in the last two pujas at night, we recited the Eightfold Path precepts that included 4 for speech. 4 out of 8, half of them are about speech. That's how powerful the speech is. So the right speech is abstaining from telling lies, abstaining from spreading malicious gossip about others or telling tales about other people, whether it's true or not, in order to get some kind of gain or hurt the other person. We can see that in politicians all the time, right? And then harsh speech, 4-letter words with anger behind it, and people are using these words all the time, but usually with anger behind it and hatred, or other types of words too, belittling speech, racist jokes, all these kind of things, will be included in harsh speech. And then useless speech. Now that's a little bit harder to deal with because there's a lot of gray lines there. But what is useless speech? But mainly it means just usually talk around the dinner table or talk around with a group of people when they're drinking beer or something. This silly talk that excites the mind or stirs up passions and so on. So, because so much karma is incurred through those types of speech, as we all know, and so the practice of Dhamma is all about reducing suffering. And in the precepts and following in the right speech and right actions, that's where probably 80% of our problems and suffering occur, both physically and mentally. Worry, guilt, remorse, fear, anxiety. Always looking over your shoulder, am I going to get caught for having, broke a precept. So to free the mind from that. And then the right livelihood, also to have a livelihood, a way to earn a living that doesn't kind of directly or even indirectly break any of those precepts. So especially younger people who are starting out in life, it's very important to try to have a livelihood that's you're not gonna regret later on because you got caught into some things that are, shady dealings and just to earn money. And so, and then so that cleans up one's karma, so to speak. Right speech, right action, right livelihood, sort of cleaning up the karma. That means weakening the unwholesome impulses that cause you to do unwholesome things, and then creating the good quality. So right effort, actually, there's 4 aspects of right effort. The effort to abandon unwholesome thoughts or ideas that come into your mind. So like if you have an idea to tell a lie or to speak about somebody else, to recognize that that's unwholesome, and that you get, like grabbing a snake by its tail, it can turn around and bite you. And so to abandon that. And then do the opposite, tell the truth instead of telling a lie, or give something instead of stealing something, or protect life instead of squashing that cockroach. You pick it up and put it outside. So that way our mind gets free from these types of, guilt, worry, remorse, and fear, and things like that. And because those become the hindrances to our meditation. Because when you meditate, it's, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when you were meditating there, how many, some of the disturbances in meditation, could you trace any of them back to maybe doing anything unskillful, or even if it was 15 years ago, or having any guilt, worry, remorse, or fear? Only 1 or 2? Okay. So the right effort. And then the right mindfulness. So we've already been talking about mindfulness. That's means being mindful of following like the 4 foundations of mindfulness, but basically just being aware of, alert to what your body is doing, what your mind is doing in the present moment. So it means being grounded more and more in the present moment, watching your thoughts, understanding what you're doing things mindfully so you don't get into accidents. Like trying to read a book while you're walking down the street and then step in a pothole or in some dog doo-doo, because you weren't looking where you were going, right? Or you were in a car getting in a crash because you were daydreaming, sleeping. So, and then the right concentration. Right concentration, even though it said attaining the jhanas, but you could see it as just being concentrated on the practice, not easily getting distracted, go do things that you wouldn't rather do just because of peer pressure or other things, or boredom, maybe. Going down, just having a few beers, that's not going to hurt, So, you go down and have a few beers, think it's not going to hurt, and some other friend comes over, you have another one. Before you know it, you're drunk and standing up on tables, taking off your clothes and acting like a fool, or getting in a fight, right? I've done all those things, so I know. I'm not talking from abstract things. It's all personal experience, everything I've been talking about. But I used the Dhamma and that's why when I heard the Dhamma, I realized, God, yes, my whole life I've been this. In fact, there's one night in that meditation course. It was the first meditation course I ever took. It was 1 month long. I heard about the meditation course. I said, I want to go there. And the person that was 1 month long, I said, who cares? Let's go. Here, if you tell a person, let's go for a weekend meditation. A weekend, oh my God, I got, or even a 1 day, oh my gosh, no, they worry about, meditating for 1 hour, right? And I just 1 month out, and then you think about it. Let's go, do it. Don't think about it. Anyway, so after 2 weeks of that course, I had this powerful experience. And the thing that came into my mind was, I've been ignorant my whole life. It was like an aha moment. Oh my God, I've been blind, stupid, and ignorant my whole life. That's the kind of experience I got actually, when I had this the understanding of the Dhamma just crystallized there, and it was, life altering. So, that's the way the Dhamma can affect people. Now, it doesn't affect everybody that way immediately, but it did. Anyway, and I wrote in my book, actually, after that experience, after I kind of calmed down, I had a little notebook I was keeping some notes in. And I said, today, and it was actually Thanksgiving Day, November of, I guess, 23rd, 24th, 1973, 50 years. This will be my 50th anniversary of what I call my, born in Dhamma. And I wrote that in my little book. Today is Thanksgiving Day, 1973. Today I am reborn. It's the first day of the rest of my life. It was that powerful. I actually wrote it down in my book. That's what insights can do, and that was my very first meditation course, and we weren't even practicing all this samadhi and all this other stuff. It was basically those thinking meditations, a large part. Although we were doing, even by the thinking, though, I got into like the first jhana. You can get into first jhana by thinking as long as it's directed, concise and directed thinking. And experience the joy and bliss that even comes with that. Anyway, so coming back, where were we? Right concentration. So anyway, that's the Noble Eightfold Path. And as most of you know, it's broken down into it's depicted as a wheel. You all know the Dhamma wheel? The Dhamma wheel. It's got eight spoked wheels, so 8 spokes are for the Dhamma wheel. And it's called a wheel because the wheel rolls, and all those spokes have to be tightened equally. How many had a bicycle with some broken spokes or weak spokes on it? You tried to ride the bike and it was a little bit wobbly. It wasn't very comfortable, right? Because some of the spokes are weak. So the same way, all of those spokes of the Eightfold Path need to be equally strengthened so that the wheel rolls smoothly. But in this day and age, a lot of people that come to Dhamma, they kind of pick and choose what they want to do. Oh, I want to, pick right concentration. I don't want to pick right speech or, right action. They want to have this freedom to kind of do what they want to do and pick and choose, but it doesn't work that way. Anyway, so, that wheel will eventually roll toward the destination. And those 8 factors, now how many people have difficulty remembering 8 things? Can you remember 3? That's why the Eightfold Path is divided into 3 categories called Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. Or I like to call it actually Panya, Sila, and Samadhi. Mindfulness, wisdom, concentration, and Sila, or skillful conduct, concentration, and wisdom. And so right understanding and right thought belong to the wisdom category. Right speech, right action, right livelihood belong to the Sila category of skillful conduct. And right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration belong to the concentration group. So it's skillful conduct, concentration, and wisdom. So you need the intellectual wisdom first. So the wisdom has 3 levels. So that's why the wisdom has to come first, at least intellectual wisdom. Like without that, we wouldn't have been attracted to the Dhamma. If I hadn't heard that, might be buried in Boot Hill in Kabul from drug overdose, or having been murdered from drug deals. So the intellectual wisdom, gets you started. But then you have to then think about it, and then you have to start practicing little by little. And as you're doing that, your intellectual wisdom then becomes more kind of, deeper. It's no longer intellectual. You're actually understanding now how all these things work, how they jive together, right? How Sila helps you to meditate, and vice versa. So that comes to the second level of wisdom, the wisdom from contemplation. And then finally, the deepest levels of wisdom are the realizations that lead to the stages of liberation, actually, or like attaining jhanas and things like that. Okay. Anyway, it's a very big subject, and I'm not going to go into it too more right now. But I wanted to, before we end, talk about how to practice the Dhamma in the daily life. So in the retreat, the big question is always, in the retreat, everything's, arranged, and we have group, meditations, and, people are able to somehow sit through the pain because they're sitting in a group and the teacher's watching them, so they force themselves to sit still and try not to move, right? Because they think the teacher's watching them, so they force them through to sit through pain, or they force them through to sit through their monkey mind or their sleepiness. And then, come all to the sessions, even though you'd like to, skip a session and sleep or something, somehow, because you're self-conscious, you force yourself to do it. And hopefully, maybe you got some benefit from it. Like, how many people got any benefit from this retreat? So, but now a lot of you are going to go home. And you may not have other people in your household who really understand or practicing the Dhamma or meditation. And they might even be a little bit averse to it too. It depends. And so, or you may not have access to a place where you can go to meditate quite often. So there are a lot of people, they lose that, they get enthused at a retreat. Like, how many of you have already written down your idea about how you're going to spend next day? You're going to get up every morning at the 5:30 or 6 and meditate, do 15 minutes of yoga, 20 minutes of yoga, 20, 30 minutes of meditation in the morning, in the evening. So usually teachers advise people to try to, if they really want to try to develop their meditation or keep it at a reasonably, some reasonable level, to meditate twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. So you might have that enthusiasm, you go home, and maybe you do it for the first couple of days, but then, when you were here at the retreat, somebody had to cover your work, while you were gone. Now they're gone on vacation, and they ask you to, so you have to work overtime, and so you're tired at night. So usually the first thing that happens is you give up the evening meditation because you were too tired. And then a few days later, a week later, the 45-minute meditation goes down to 30 minutes. And a week later, the 30-minute meditation drops to 15 minutes. Before you know it, you're going out the door and you pat the Buddha on the head and say, Namo Buddhaya, you meditate for me. And that becomes your meditation. Oh, yeah. Sound familiar? Okay. I know. But I've heard this story so many times. I've been teaching meditation retreats for over 40 years, and I've encountered the same students, especially in Europe and others, and they, of course, by now their practice is stabilized, but in the beginning, So sometimes the only time people meditate is when they go on a retreat or DOM. Or maybe they just do 10 or 15 minutes of some cursory meditation, but usually by, the mind is full of thoughts because you're doing lots of things, so it doesn't amount to a whole lot. So anyway, for people who, find it difficult to sustain a daily practice in the daily life, we've come up with an alternative or a supplement. It's called meditation supplement. Vitamin supplement? So there's a meditation supplement. And it's called an M&M. And M&M stands for a minute meditation, or a minute of mindfulness. And it's a specific practice that you train yourself to do. Every hour during the day, you train yourself to stop, kind of freeze whatever you happen to be doing, and just bring your attention to the body. Take a deep, slow breath, a 3-part breath, hold the air in the lungs, try to feel some sensation, or just remember, I am standing, sitting. Basically let go whatever you were doing or about to rush to, freeze, and come to the present moment. And just take 1 or 2 or 3 of those 3-part breaths, feel the body, breathing in, standing, breathing out, standing, and try to touch base with the, that pull the mind back in, so to speak. And just 2 or 3 of those 3-part breaths is already 1 minute. And how many people noticed when you tried that when you were doing the 3-part breathing, especially when you could get it a little bit longer and holding in the breath, you really couldn't think about much while you were doing that, right? I don't know, put words in your mouth, but some people could, of course, but not in probably as strong as you ordinarily would, because it takes all of your effort and attention just to do that. So that's why it's good even for that purpose, but also for the purpose of helping to relax. And basically just to break that neurotic push to the future, which most people have. Most people, it's like they have an invisible hand on their back that's pushing them, go, 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 throughout the whole day, right? And then getting frustrated, stressed out, you make mistakes. You have to stop at the bar on the way home to get a drink, something like that. So practicing the M&Ms every hour, you're able to release the stress hour by hour rather than accumulating it. Basically, that's the purpose of it. And then you can start into that next hour more fresh, because you can also contemplate the Dhamma in that 1 minute, or you can even do it a little bit longer, of course, too. But so you let your Dharma understanding crystallize in that, or you can tell yourself, okay, just slow down, don't rush. When you start in the next hour, you come out of that, just don't rush now, don't rush. The world will wait, And then you find that, when you move a little bit more mindfully, you don't make so many mistakes. Or say something to somebody else that you might regret later on. So that's the power of the mindfulness. It's about helping to conserve our energy and not, getting into unnecessary actions and conflicts with others by our body language, by our speech, or even our facial expressions. The whole science behind facial expressions, right? So people are reading your face. Oh, you're angry at me. Your brows are furrowed, or whatever. So you can be more relaxed. So this is one of the what I always repeat to people, one of the most valuable things that you could learn, especially if you find yourself not meditating for a longer time in the morning or evening. Now, the morning meditation is the absolute best one out of all of them, because it prepares your mind for the day ahead, hopefully. Especially if you do some yoga at first, and get the circulation moving, some deep, slow breathing, and get that centeredness from a 30-minute or so meditation. But it'll wear off again, in a few hours. Mostly it will wear off, depending on what kind of a job you have or other interactions you're going to do. So that's why the M&Ms then supplement that. So hopefully, keep it charged up a little bit, called mini charge. Mini charge. People like these mini charge. So an M&Ms is like a mini mindfulness charge. And then the evening meditation is good to do to practice metta and forgiveness. So anybody who might have wronged you during the day, you can practice forgiveness and metta. First, forgiveness, to forgive anybody who did something you perceived was not good, or if you did something, to forgive yourself. But, determine not to do it again. And then send metta to yourself and to all other beings. And that way, hopefully you'll have a better sleep. Because if you're carrying grudges and resentments with you when you go to sleep, then that's why people, have restless sleep and so on, for a large part of it. So, and then apart from the M&Ms, or 1 minute, stopping for 1 minute during the day, in the supermarket or in the dentist office or in any place else where you have to wait in line for something, or even stop at a traffic light. You got, now they tell you how many seconds you have before the light turns green, right? So okay, I got 20 seconds. Instead of looking around, oh, it's a new Porsche. Or getting upset about somebody over there, or somebody's letting their dog poop on the grass, and just keep your eyes on yourself. You just feel the body, put that outline of the body there, holding the steering wheel. And sitting. You even sit up straight in your car seat, take a couple of deep, slow breaths. But then be aware of the outside world, because maybe you won't be aware of the light turning, the guy behind you start honking his horn. Hey, buddy! So you have to be aware of the outer world as well as your inner world. That's the skill of meditation. We have to go through this world abiding by relative truth. But when the need for absolute truth comes, that you have to apply absolute truth. Like the urge to spout out some negative speech to somebody or do something else. Then you apply the Dhamma, the absolute emptiness. There's no self or I. But when something needs to be done, you just don't sit there, hearing, thinking, smelling, tasting. You do what needs to be done to accomplish something that needs to be done out of compassion, out of kindness to others. But then, when there's no need to do anything, you come back. Breathing in, sitting, breathing out, sitting. Hearing, smelling, tasting. Emptiness. Right? So that's the way, ideally, we should learn how to practice the Dhamma. And so, anyway, friends, so I want to see if there's any last questions that any of you have before ending the retreat. Feel free to ask any question. Don't be shy. Well, it depends on what the source of that is. You have to investigate and find out what is the source of this not sleeping well. Is it some fear? Is it some worry? There's thoughts about something that you're doing, or maybe you didn't eat something. Maybe because of unmindfulness, you ate something that didn't agree with you and it caused some upset. Or it could be a lot of things, right? But if you're mindful and you just reflect on it, you might be able to see it. But especially it's worry, anxiety, fear, all these sort of emotions that are in the unconscious mind. These are what come up. Because when you sleep, you lose awareness of the conscious world. And so the whole of the unconscious then comes up, and that's the source of your dreams. So we have to, and those are inside of you. They're not coming from outside, Mara or anybody else. So you have to be aware of that and see, what is there, and then you have to try to work on some of that, alleviating the sources that give rise to those sorts of thoughts. I mean, that's how we apply mindfulness and wisdom in the right effort. Any other questions? As my mother used to say, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Can I ask a question, Bhante?
Oh, is it? Okay. Question from the ether.
Okay, thanks. Sorry I couldn't join you guys this morning. But could you just briefly give us the takeaway that we can bring home with us about the importance of the aggregates and the spiritual suffering you said that they cause?
Well, you have to, yeah, you have to study and be able to identify what these aggregates are, and the moment they're arising, to grab a hold of your mind, like something connected with the body, your body, somebody else's body, or some material object that the mind is either starting to have lust for or aversion to, and so on. You can apply it. This is material vibration. This is perception, whatever your perception is. See, normally we always perceive the beauty in objects. And so we're always attracted to the marks of beauty because we're trained that way. But instead, one of the practices of the Buddha was to see the marks of impurity in the object. Okay, maybe a certain person is very beautiful or has certain curves or whatever you're attracted to. But underneath that, see them with X-ray eyes, without their skin or their hair or their painted fingernails. See them as just bone-smeared skeleton. Would you want to jump in bed with that? Or see the harmful effects of food you're eating, cigarettes, drugs, or coffin nails. You have to contemplate this when the mind is latching a hold of these types of material forms. And then the feelings. You see the feeling that arises from it. You get a pleasurable feeling from, eating your nice food or having a perfect coffee or whatever it might be. But that's very temporarily. And you get addicted to these feelings. And if you can't have what you want, then you tell lies or fight or steal or kill or rape, to get those things. So you see the danger in being addicted to these pleasurable feelings and also the painful feelings. So this is the way we can, contemplate them. And then the perceptions, how whatever you see, it's a mentally created image that are conditioned. So when you were young, your parents might have told you, stay away from these kind of people, stay away from this kind of people. And then your perception gets imprinted with that. So every time you see a person who might match that kind of a description, there's automatically kind of fear. You're clinging to that perception that's not real, that may be not real. Like people that see me on the street, they have a perception, some religious freak, better stay away from him, he might try to push God on us or something, and then, it blocks out the world. Our clinging to our perceptions, blocks out half the world. And then our volitional formations, our habits that are triggered by this perceptions and so on. And then, of course, the ego consciousness. So whenever these things pop into the mind and become obvious, that's the time you have to identify it and then kind of reflect on it, and then hopefully try to let go of any strong clinging or attachment or impulse to want to, do something that's going to increase that negative habit. That's the way we have to apply the Dhamma. But most people, they think 5 aggregates is some philosophical kind of idea, and they think, it doesn't, nothing to do with me. It's not true. It's what you are. There's nothing except the 5 aggregates. But it takes a lot of thinking about it and contemplating it. That's why people don't do it, because they just think, samadhi, 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 the breath, the breath, the breath. And they just want to get enveloped in some pleasurable feeling, and they don't want to go contemplating these things. So, does that answer your question?
Thank you. So important. So important. Sadhu. Thank you.
Who was that? Damon?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there you are. Okay. Okay, good luck, Damon. Okay, friends, we're going to now wind up this retreat. And I want to wish you all, I'm going to just chant a little blessing for you. You've accumulated a lot of merit by coming to this retreat. Now, what is merit? Merit means the things that we do that uplift your mind, that help to point your mind in a, let's say, a little higher direction or alternative direction to what you're trying to achieve, or at least to increase the source of well-being and happiness, as opposed to demerits, which are things that you do that bring our mind deeper into confusion and so on. So the practice of meditation is considered to be the highest form of merit. There's three main forms of merit. There's generosity, where instead of being miserly and keeping everything for yourself, you share with others, whether it's your money, your wealth, your knowledge, your tools, your time, and so on. It's about breaking down that selfish shell of just I, me, and mine, and my family, opening up the heart. So generosity is a way of doing that. And then practicing the precepts, because that is where most of your suffering is incurred in the daily life by not doing that. And then meditation is considered the highest form of merit. In fact, the Buddha gave a little breakdown. He said, if you practice dana or generosity for 100 years, but without practicing sila, because somebody can do that. They can give things around, but they can go out cheating others at the same time or telling lies and stuff like that, right? But so if you practice generosity without practicing sila, still it might have some benefit, but you're still going to suffer because you don't practice the sila. But he said, if you practice sila for 1 day, is more merit than practicing dana for 100 years without practicing sila. Because in one breach of sila, if you kill somebody, you could go to prison or go to hell, for one misstep. So that's why practicing sila is worth more than 100 years of practicing generosity without sila. And then he goes on to the comparison of the meditation or the panya. He said, practicing sila for 100 years, but without practicing meditation, that means gaining higher levels of meditation, developing wisdom. Practicing sila may help prevent you from being born as an animal or in hell or as a hungry ghost, but you might still be born in heaven realms for, billions of years hence, which is not the goal of Buddhist practice. You're still in samsara. But he said practicing meditation, 1 day of meditation, serious meditation, like coming on a whole day retreat and, gaining some levels of concentration and insight would be worth more than practicing sila for 100 years without practicing meditation. That's how much power the Buddha gave to practicing meditation, because it's about change. Meditation changes your mind. Practicing sila helps you just refrain from negative actions, but it might not necessarily change your mind. Although probably it would eventually, but still. But it's the meditation that actually leads to the states of liberation, not just generosity or sila. But all three of those, normally, generosity is easier to practice. If you have two of something, you can easily give one away. But to refrain from telling that lie or or going after somebody else's mate, with lust or something, that's harder to let go of. So the that practicing the sila is helps to prevent that. So, and then the meditation, it's easier to practice sila than meditate. In Sri Lanka, for example, people are very good at practicing dana. And a lot of them are good at practicing sila, at least most of them. There was one man in Sri Lanka. I lived in a little hut on a hill in Sri Lanka. And I was meditating in a little hut. There was a lot of houses in the village. And there was one man who was addicted to toddy. You know, toddy, right? Toddy, liquor, coconut liquor, toddy, or Iraq. And he didn't want to take the 5 precepts. He said, I'm going to take 4 precepts. Because at 5 o'clock, I want to have my toddy. This guy, he only took 4 precepts because he still wanted to drink. And they would come to my kuti kind of drunk sometimes. Oh, hamdara, give me 5 precepts, give me 5 precepts. And I said, no. I didn't want to contribute to his game, you know. So people like to play games with the precepts. You know? But actually, refraining from intoxicant is the most important, because it's because we intoxicate the mind that we would break the other precepts, right? You've all seen that, right? Either in yourself or others. When you get drunk, it's easy to use bad language, or fight with others, you know, do foolish things, you know. But when you're completely sober, it's much harder to do those things. So anyway, so that's that. Okay. So it's a good thing if you remember those 8 lifetime precepts, and to remember or recite them every day, because we forget so easily, especially the ones about speech. When you're in the office and you overhear other people gossiping at the coffee urn or something else, trying to spread rumors about their colleague or their boss or something else, you know, don't get into that, you know. Just go away. Unless it's maybe pertaining, or maybe they're talking about you, you know, and you have to be aware of your reaction too. And sometimes we have to be stern with people, and we don't want to let people walk over us too, you know. And so sometimes you might have to correct somebody if they're, you know, spreading a rumor or something untrue. You know, you have to set it right, but you have to do it out of compassion and not out of anger, you know. So this is a fine line. I mean, the middle path should always be remembered, you know, in practicing the Dhamma, to follow the middle path, to avoid the extremes. And, you know, it's a balancing act. It's a continual balancing act. And that's why without the daily meditation, it'll get out of balance. It's the mindfulness which is the pivotal key toward being able to maintain that balance. Okay? So the next retreat here is going to be over the Thanksgiving time, from 23rd to 26th of November. And there'll be also a New Year's end retreat, or a New Year's retreat, which is going to go from, it'll be a 1 or 2 days longer, the 27th of December to January 1st. That time, those are going to be the 2 next retreats we have here, but we also have our DOM's Day of Mindfulness once a month in between, and the times will be posted on our website or in the mailing that I sent out. If some of you are not on our weekly mailing, if you want to be on that, you can sign the piece of paper on the clipboard over there with your email address. And we send people reminders of our program. We also have an AI, which is called an afternoon intensive, in which I don't give any instructions or guided meditations, but it's a 3-hour period between 2 and 5, usually on a Saturday, where people can come and who's ever here, we just meditate. And you can meditate kind of free form. So you can meditate. Usually we sit for about an hour, and then we do a period of some standing and walking for about an hour, and then sit for another hour, you know, after that. But I'm not really giving guided meditations or Dhamma talks during that time. So it's kind of people that already have a kind of a practice, but they just want to give it a little boost, you know, or push the edge of their meditation practice a little bit, you know. Yeah, and then we have the Wednesday night Zoom program from 7 to 9. And so even this Wednesday, there'll be one. And for the first hour of that, usually we have some topic of Dhamma that I talk about, or people can ask questions. And then we have a yoga session similar to the ones I've been doing with you, the short ones before meditation, 5 or 6 of those breathing and standing ones, and then sit for about the guided meditation for about 45 minutes. So that usually occurs on every Wednesday, although once in a while, if I have some other commitment, we cancel it. But I usually give that information in the weekly mailing. Okay. And of course, also this place is open for people to come on self-retreat. So maybe our organized retreats don't fit in at a time when you have time, but maybe you have some other thing where you have a couple of days of off or something like that, or you just feel like you need it, you can come on a self-retreat. And that is that you can stay in one of our rooms, or if there's a kuti available, stay in a kuti. And then basically you join our morning and evening practice that we do every day. You can, whatever we're having here, or it happens to be on a Saturday and we're having a DOM, you can participate in that. But then you meditate on your own as you see fit, the rest of the time. Or you help out with maybe 1 or 2 hours of some chores around the place, or if you get bored, you want a work assignment, we can find something to do. So like that, anyway, it's just a time to you get away from your whatever environment you're living in for a while, just to clear your head out. People can come here, but you have to apply for that on our website. And also, if you live here close enough to here, like a few people do, they come sometimes in the morning or evening, usually in the evening. They only live like 15 or 20 minutes away. They might come for our evening meditation at 7 o'clock, 7:30. In the summertime, it's 7 o'clock. In winter time, it goes back to about 6:30 for the morning. So that's all, folks. So even though we're going to sort of officially break the noble silence, please don't turn it into the PETA fish market. Okay.
Right.
Noisy place. So if you're going to talk, try to talk in a low tone and talk mindfully, and not rush to find out all the news in the world in 5 minutes. Okay.
Thank you, Bob.
We're going to have lunch here, and then then clean up whatever you used from our center, the room. Try to keep the room in a tidy order, the same way you found it. If you happen to have used some of our own bedding or things like pillowcase or a sheet or something like that, or a towel, then bring that down to the laundry room down in here, and maybe we can do that. But anyway, just and try not to leave anything here, because once in a while somebody leaves something, they forget something under the bed, a pair of socks, or a pair of some clothing, or the glasses, or a cell phone. Okay? So go ahead and mindfully stand up, or if you like to, actually it's good to, now that we're going to be leaving the meditation hall, if you like to bow 3 times, you can do that. It's a way of taking the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha off the cushion, just as a reminder. Go ahead and stand up. While it's fresh in your mind, this is the best time to do an M&M. Best time to do those M&Ms is whenever you stood up from having sat for, laid down for a long time, and before you rush to the future, just stand and do a 1 minute M&M before rushing to the future. Just center yourself, do, be mindful.